Hello, this is Brian Rowe with LSNTAP, and this is a video from a recent webinar series we did on video editing and on multilingual video strategies. We've got two great speakers on it, Susan and Daniel, and I'm going to put it into the recording here. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us.
So it will be up there probably within the next few days. Also, any of the other materials, slides, those types of things will be posted. And then Liz Lehman, our Vista out at Montana Legal Aid, will be posting a summary of the webinar up on our blog. The other major partner in this, Atlanta Legal Aid, put together a wonderful site which is sharelawvideo.org, and that's going to be talked about slightly later. But the main thing to know about this is it's a great place for finding raw footage and other pieces of content that you can reuse yourself. We've got two great panelists today. We have Daniel, who's here from Northwest Justice Project. We were fortunate enough to pick him up on a fellowship about a year ago, and now he does a significant amount of video production for us. And then we also have Susan, who is a video producer herself and previously worked with, I believe, Illinois Legal Aid. And they are our two main speakers for the day. Is there anything else that anybody, Kristen or anybody else, has to add before we jump into Susan's presentation? I think we're in good shape. I'm going to move presenter over to Susan.
Great, thank you. Let me just make sure I can share my screen.
Okay, we've got your screen there.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Great.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you. So today I'm going to talk about working with, or show you some basic editing tips in Final Cut Pro. So first you need to launch Final Cut Pro from your dock or from an icon on your computer, wherever you have it. And just for today, I should let you know I have Final Cut Pro version 6. So depending on what you're using, the features might be a little different, but the interface will look the same and pretty much be the same. So the first thing you need to do with Final Cut Pro, two very important things. One is first set your scratch disks, and that's a very kind of technical term for basically just determining where you're going to be saving your Final Cut Pro session or media files. So to do that, you go under Final Cut Pro, you go to System Settings, you'll see Scratch Disks, you'll press Set, and pretty much then you find where you want to save everything. I go to Documents. I have a Final Cut Pro document folder. I click on that, and then I hit Choose. And then everything that I work on will be saved to that folder. It's good to know where everything is. It's always good also to have an external hard drive if you can for your video files, because your computer might get locked up a little bit if it's running Final Cut Pro and then also dealing with the media files in one place. Okay, so if you have an external hard drive, it's good for your media. The second thing you need to do is go under Final Cut Pro again, hit Audio Video Settings, and this is where you determine the format of your video. Okay, these presets that you see, this playback that you see, all need to be set to the same thing. So mostly now we're all dealing with high definition HD video. Okay, so you'll see that if you click on here, Final Cut Pro can handle a lot of different formats. Okay, so the one that I typically use is HD, DVC Pro HD, 720p, 24 frames per second. Okay, so the capture preset also should be the same because that's what you're going to be capturing your media in, right? HD typically. And then you just press OK. All right, so you need those two things kind of set before you even begin. Okay, so then you go under File, Create New Project, and then boom, now you can kind of see the interface of Final Cut Pro. You'll need to save this project as, save it as test. Okay. And you'll see these kind of four categories, areas here. The first one here is your browser. Then you have your viewer here. You have your canvas here. And you have your timeline or sequence here. Okay. I'll talk a little bit about what each of these can do, but the best way to see what they can do is first by bringing media into Final Cut Pro so we can play around. So how do you bring media into Final Cut Pro? There's typically 3 different ways of doing that. Okay. First, all of these will be actually under File. Okay. So the first way you could potentially bring in media is by going to Log and Capture. And what that one is pretty much if you're digitizing video footage that you have shot in real time from your camera. So this is usually used on older cameras like mini DV standard definition format, but it can also be used on some high definition cameras as well. So ideally you will connect your camera to your computer, FireWire, USB, and then launch Final Cut Pro. Okay, and at this point it says you'll see audio only capture, selected video preview disabled, but if your camera was plugged in, I don't have time to do that today to actually show you how to do this, but I'm just going to explain it. Final Cut Pro would be able to recognize the camera, and then you would be able to control the camera playback from Final Cut Pro. So make sure your camera's plugged in, make sure it's on, and then what you would do is hit play on your camera or on here, and then you would press capture now, and then in real time it would capture all the footage that you shot. And then once you were done, there's something that would be like stop, or it would just end, and then you would just close out this Log and Capture browser or box, whatever you want to call it. And then another way to bring in media is through Log and Transfer. Okay, this is typically used in more kind of, I guess, the newer HD cameras where video is already a saved file in a folder on your camera. Okay, and again, Final Cut Pro will be pretty good at navigating to where that video is and finding it for you. But if you can't find it, you can click this left icon here and navigate to your camera, which will be, plugged in and probably appear on the desktop of your computer. So then what you'll see is a list of basically video files that you've recorded, clips that you've recorded. You'll highlight all of them here. You'll drag them to this box down here, and then Final Cut Pro will ingest all of them into the Final Cut Pro session. And when you're done, you'll just close out that box. Now the last way of bringing in media is if the media already exists on your computer. It can be QuickTime files, it can be JPEGs, Photoshop documents, WAV files for audio or MP3, something like that. So then you would just go to Import Files, like I've already put this together, so webinar today. I just navigate to where I want to go, and then I pick whatever I want to bring in. So let's say I want to bring in this pre-existing kind of QuickTime videos, and then boom, it shows up, you'll see here in your browser. So you can do that for whatever media that you need. And like I said, it will kind of be this list that appears over here. So let's go to an existing project that I already have. I'm doing a Spanish eviction court video for Atlanta Legal Aid. So let's open that up so we can see what this all looks like once you've got your media all in. So again, this is your browser. Let's close this project because I don't want that to get in my way. Okay, so now we just have the eviction project here. Okay, so let's look at the browser, the viewer, the canvas, and the timeline or sequence down here. So your browser is basically where you organize all of your media. And to do that, you can go under File and create a bin or sequences. Let's create a bin. The bin is what you see here, what I already have. It's basically a folder. You can name it whatever you want, and you can put media however, organize it however you want, but it's best to organize it instead of these long lists of media files. So I put my audio files in here. I put any kind of JPEGs or whatever. I have like court pictures here. Okay, everything's kind of organized here. So this is the first page of your browser. Okay, also the other one was sequences. You can create new sequences. And sequences is what you see here, the timeline. It's actually your video. So you can call it maybe you have kind of outtakes that you're not going to use, or whatever you want to name your video. These are videos, and again, these are folders. So the second page is called Effects. Okay, and we'll get to this a little later when we play around with editing. But this is a list, or bins, I guess, with all the different kinds of either video transitions, video filters, or audio transitions, audio filters that you can use on your video or audio clips. And you'll see like video transitions, there's dissolves, irises, stretches, wipes, whatever you want to use. There's a whole lot of stuff in here. And video filters, color correction I use a lot, sharpen I use sometimes, that kind of thing. And the same goes for audio. That's all here. And just as a tip, this is something that I like to do. I created my own bin of all my favorite effects that I like to use. These are the ones I use more than any other. So then I can just pull them out of here instead of having to go to these folders, which are buried in folders. Just saves me time. Okay, so that's the browser. So the viewer is where you can see your video clips or your images, whatever you have. And this is kind of the area where you can play around with filters and really kind of work with your effects and transitions here. Canvas is where you get to see the video. Sorry, let me turn off my speakers. See the video from directly from your timeline. It's a good preview of what you're going to be watching and working with. And then the timeline, of course, is where you edit everything. Okay. Well, you can edit it, sorry, in the viewer and in the timeline. But this is where your video is. Okay. And you can control certain things in the timeline. You can kind of customize it to how you want it. So you'll see here, this is where all your video tracks are, okay, the kind of top portion. And then below that is where all your audio tracks are. I think right now I have about 8 tracks for audio and video, but you can add many more on if you need it. So customizing the view, like if you want your tracks to be bigger, smaller, whatever, you would come over here to this corner. If you want to expand or minimize your sequence, you can just do this, and I'm just touching Command plus sign to expand, and then Command minus or subtraction sign to minimize the timeline. And then over here, let's see, to move that, okay. Over here you'll see your volume meter, right? You typically want your audio to be around 12 decibels, that's your goal. And then above that you'll see your editing tools here, okay? And I'll show you about a little bit about those in just a second. Okay, so let's bring in some video. Okay, so you'll see here I've already put together a piece, okay? And you'll see video clips and audio as well. So let's go to my source video. Let's look at this one. All right, so how do you bring video and audio into the timeline? One thing is you can drag the whole clip in if you want and just put it here, and you'll see that the audio is locked to the picture so it doesn't lose sync. That's fine. And this red means that this needs to be rendered, okay, in Final Cut Pro. You'll have to render your effects and sometimes your video, and that can take a few minutes. You can also kind of minimize or, expand or however you want to play around with your clips, make it longer, shorten it, whatever.
When you say render, what exactly do you mean? What are you doing there?
Well, I would click on my shortcut, Apple R, because right now, if you click on it here, right, it says unrendered. Okay, I can't show you. Basically, Final Cut Pro needs to render the image out or the effect out so you can see what it really looks like. Okay. So then I would just do Apple R, and then it would take a few minutes to render out that video. The reason why this is happening with this video is because this video is not the native format to what I remember when I started out. I set my audio video settings at HD, and this is HD, but it's a different version of HD. So I have to render that out. Because you could potentially be dealing with lots of different formats. Okay, your final format could be HD, but if you're getting a clip that was shot 10 years ago and it's standard def, you're going to have to render it into HD.
So it's
So,
basically converting the format.
and you'll see that with rendering out video. Yeah, you're converting a format. Exactly.
Well, I'm sorry, this is Daniel. Rendering is sometimes I think about it as just processing, but it's sort of a step you have to do in video. So, I mean, you could add a black and white effect or some transition or anything you tell it to do. It just remembers those changes, and then you have to render it, which is just video speak for process or finalize.
Right, because you have your source video, which is one format, and then it's almost like saving a layer on top of that in a changed or different format. And so then you always have to kind of render out your effects. Now, once you render it out, you shouldn't have to render it out again. You know what I mean? It's just something that you have to do typically once, and then you can preview it and play it normally, and it's fine. I'll show you that too when we actually put effects on. But just in terms, of, again, of bringing your video and audio into the timeline, you can either drag it in as one full piece, right? Again, this will look unrendered, but and then you can either, let's go over to the blade here. You can use your editing tools, right, and just kind of, put clips together or create clips that you want by using these editing tools, or you can bring the clip into your viewer and basically determine the length of the clips or the clips that you want from this footage that you brought in, and then drag that clip into the timeline. For instance, say I want the clip to start here. I can do, I'm just doing Apple I, oh sorry, excuse me, it's the wrong one. What am I doing? Sorry, one second. Oh, it's Option I. Okay. Or you can trim your clip here and bring it in to Final Cut Pro. Okay. So then you'll see, that's what I would recommend first when you're editing, is kind of doing a rough cut first. Bringing all the clips in, say, get your dialogue or your scene kind of set and edited, just very basic, very rough. And so then it's like an assembly or a rough cut. And you're putting all of that into your timeline before you apply any effects or transitions or filters or anything like that. Okay. So let's see what some of these effects could look like, and I'll show you a little bit. You'll see the rendering, the red line here or the green line here, and I'll show you how to render those effects. So, for instance, this is a fade. I've got some fades here. Actually, before I get to effects, I'm skipping ahead. Let's go back, actually. Video and audio all in the timeline. Let's look at these tracks and what they can do. So this is video here. And whatever's on your kind of baseline of your video, that's what you can see unless you cover it with another layer on top of it, right? And whatever's on top of that is going to cover the video below it, right? So with video, I find that there's pretty much the video itself, or you can create text layers, right? Or, for instance, let's look at this. This video starts off with kind of a PowerPoint-y looking image. I've got a color solid in the background. I have text, right? And again, you can use your viewer. And under controls, you can create text layers, right? You can write in what the text is, choose the font, the color, shading, anything like that. And then if you wanted to, say you took this, I'm just copying and pasting it over, you would see that that text would now, this is obviously not what you would want, but a lot of people put lower thirds or text here for Joe Smith, executive director, that kind of thing. That text image covers the image, okay? And it's also transparent, obviously, so you can see both. But so there's image, there's text. These are the different tabs here that you have in your viewer. So you can see the video that I have highlighted here. Any kind of filters, I'll show you how to drag on filters in just a moment. And then you can also create motion. Like, for instance, there's like a the document here, if you watch it play out, I've created movement in this document. So I've pretty much put that JPEG in. I put it to the length that I want, and then I can create motion by, this is the size of the image, and then I have in and out points where we start it higher, and then we go to the out point where it ends up lower in the picture, and then you see the gradual move there. So that's how you kind of do movement with your image. And then again, any kind of possible text. And then I wanted to show you some effects. I know I'm kind of racing through this, but this is just kind of that's all we have time for.
So there was a quick question here, which is
what if we wanted to put...
Is text
Sure.
considered an effect?
Yes. Or I think of it as another video layer or track. And if you have it move, you know, I think it's an effect. I mean, maybe you could just think of it as another image on top of your video image, right? But then if you manipulate it in any way, I think of it as an effect.
So it ends up in one of
But
those
that's just me,
separate layers.
Yeah. So usually, like I said, you've got your video layer. You could put a text layer here. Like for instance, later on I have, like in this video that I've been working on, you'll see this. So you've got color solid here, which is the white. You can create just basic kind of color backgrounds, text for what you want on top of here. And then I have, like, these are just actually bullet points that I've put in. And these, you know, appear as separate tracks in the video. So I don't know if you'd call them effects necessarily, but they are layers, they're video layers, and you have to add them in.
Great. And another way that I've seen that same type of effect created is have someone create a PowerPoint, which they may be more familiar with, export that as a single GIF picture, and then take that picture and drag and drop it directly onto the timeline.
Yeah, and you can definitely do that. The only thing I would say is that anything that you're going to create out of Final Cut Pro will be higher resolution than anything that you bring in. Like for instance,
that's a very good point.
This is the video that Kristen gave me, right? And I used it as a reference for my Spanish one. And to me, it doesn't look, I mean, it doesn't look as crisp as...
well, and if you want to
like
edit
I could have
it,
just edited
you have a
this.
lot more power to edit it if you create it in Final Cut than if you create it externally. There was one other question here, which is where is the window and pull down to create the layers?
Okay, so if you're creating this on your own instead of just seeing me or looking at my already existing piece. Okay, so for like if you're just doing this from scratch, you would go again into your viewer and click on this A tool, and let's just do like a color solid. Okay, so I actually just, sorry, what did I do? I just clicked on that, not even right click, just click on it. And then you can go under matte, and then there's like color, right? So you click on control, and you'd click on this box here, and you can kind of determine the color, so you want it to be blue. Press OK, go back to video to see what it looks like, and then you can just drag that down into the timeline, and you've got your blue color solid there. Okay, if you want to do text, go to text. I usually just do text. You could do lower third, outline text. There's different kinds of text you can create, but I just do text. I go to controls. Hello there. Okay, you just type in what you want. And then you can, again, bring that down into here. If you go back to controls, you can choose whatever font you want. Let's try Baskerville. It's pretty much bold it. You can left it, whatever you want to do. And then again, you can pull that down into your timeline. You can click on it and go to motion. And motion will help you position where you want the text. See this red little bar? You can pretty much, say you want it to be here, it's there. If you want to move it anywhere else, you can do that. And then also with the motion, you can do drop shadow, cropping, any kind of other kind of. There's other tools in there that you can also use to manipulate that. However, sorry, I'm doing this all very quickly, but it's just because I don't have a lot of time. Is that
Yes, that
helpful?
definitely answers it.
Okay, good. So that's kind of how you would do it from scratch. Let's see. How am I doing on time? Am I okay? I wanted to just show how to bring in effects and transitions. So let's do a transition really quick. Again, there's video and audio transitions. You're mostly going to use video transitions, but so let's just expand this a little bit. Timeline. And I'm going to show you how to bring in. Sorry.
Kristen, can you, we've got about 5 more minutes.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay, so let's show you how the two for video that I use most often are fade in and fade out, and then a cross dissolve. So let's see what a cross dissolve would look like. You put it on the clip, and you can make it longer or shorter, depending. I think that you can make it shorter. Like you can make it 1 frame all the way to 10 frames, whatever you want. You'll see that it's going to be green there. So I do Apple R, and I render out the effect. I think actually, sorry, let me cancel this because I've got some other things going on in there. I'm going to get rid of all the stuff that I brought in. Okay. Okay. So I'm rendering that out. And then you'll be able to see what it looks like, excuse me, once it's rendered. Usually it doesn't take this long for something that's, I must have something else in my timeline. But then you can render it out and then you'll see the dissolve. Okay, and then say you wanted to use a fade, you would just simply take the fade, okay, from your effects page and just drag it onto the timeline and see it there. Most, excuse me, most transitions you're going to just bring directly into the timeline, render them, and then just preview them in your canvas from the timeline. Okay, so then we play it. I just click the space bar. You see the dissolve, okay? That's not beautiful, but that's kind of what it looks like. And again, like that's what you would do with like a fade or any kind of transition from one clip to the next. Let's say now you're going to do or use a video filter. Like most of the time I use a video filter for color correction. So I would just, let me actually delete that. Okay, you can delete it, or you can always undo whatever you've done by hitting Apple Z or just deleting it. It's fine. You're not going to lose anything, I don't believe. So here's the clip in the timeline. You highlight it, and then you put color correction on. So this is how you would work with all filters. You just put them onto the clip, and then you manipulate them as needed. So let's say I want to make this, I don't like that, but this is what it looks like, okay? You're increasing the saturation. You're playing around with your color correction. And then you can render it out and then preview it again by playing it in the timeline. So, okay, so maybe Daniel can talk about effects a little bit more since I didn't have a lot of time to show you about effects in particular.
So two more
But one thing
quick questions
sorry,
here
go ahead.
on Final Cut specifically.
Sure.
What is the cost of the program, and what is the learning curve? How difficult is it to pick up over time and figure out?
Right. Well, Final Cut Pro is more expensive. I'm not sure exactly what it's running for now, but it's in the hundreds of dollars area, I believe. Then you can also get different versions of Final Cut Pro where there's, I believe, like HD Express or something. So there's full-on Final Cut Pro is going to be more expensive than kind of a different version where it has less kind of bells and whistles, but it has what you need. And I'm not sure if there's any kind of educator or, kind of discount involved in that. I'm not sure. But it is very expensive as opposed to iMovie that comes automatically with your Apple computer upon purchase, and Camtasia and some of the other software that's out there. But as a result, that expense is, you have more tools and options, and it's a professional, professional editors use Final Cut Pro, so it looks very nice.
It looks like Final Cut Pro
the
is running
learning
about
curve,
$300, and we will look into if there's an educator or a nonprofit discount and post something on that if we can find one.
And the learning curve, the more you practice with it, the easier it becomes. I don't think I think it's user friendly. I don't think it's too difficult. I like Apple. I like their products because I think they are easy to use, but it does take some time. I mean, obviously you look over the manual, but I learn more from hands-on experience. So if the more you can play around with it, the better. And if you have a chance to take a class where you're actually practicing with editing pieces, I think you'll become more proficient at a faster pace. So real quick, one last thing I wanted to show you is, okay, so your video is done. How do you export it out of Final Cut Pro? You would go under File, Export. You can either export it as a QuickTime movie, which is rare. I wouldn't recommend doing this all the time. But if you export it as a QuickTime movie, it's pretty much going to be at the raw kind of source video level. It's not compressed or as compressed as doing what I'm going to show you next, which is exporting through QuickTime conversion. So this is, again, you choose your HD format, audio and video, and then you save it to your desktop or wherever you want to save it. If you're doing QuickTime conversion, I do QuickTime conversion a lot. Like, for instance, I will export the video and I will use YouSendIt or some format or some data transfer service to send the video file to someone to look at. I'll do like a low-res version. They can look at it, and then if I wanted to do a higher-res version for their YouTube page or something, then I could create that later on. But you can use QuickTime conversion, and basically it looks like this. You go to Options. I don't need to really prepare for internet streaming, so I click that off. My sound settings, usually AAC is what I set it to. It's 48 kilohertz for your audio. And then you can control high quality if you want, and you can make it medium, whatever you'd like to do. Okay. And then I like to customize it to a size of my choice. And I usually do it pretty small, and I save the kind of aspect ratio, right? You don't want it to be stretched or anything like that. And you can customize it to whatever you want. And then basically you hit OK, and then you save it to wherever you want on your computer. Yeah, so that's how you would, and it, then it would take a few minutes to export the file. It can take a while, but then you have it for, someone to preview or to post on YouTube or put on a DVD or what have you. So, okay, I know it sounds like I rushed through some stuff, but. That's all I had time for, and I'm sorry if I get into your time, Daniel, but I don't know if there's any other questions or anything, so.
Susan, do you want to mention that you put together training materials and they're on ShareLaw Video in the training library?
Yes. I wrote a few articles for the ShareLaw Video project. One of them was basic editing using Final Cut Pro and iMovie, so you can go there to reference those articles. And I also put together an article on how to, I guess, produce a non-English speaking video, which Daniel's going to talk about the multilingual videos a little bit more today. But I put together a short article on my experiences doing that for Illinois Legal Aid Online. And then I also put together some just kind of sample documents like storyboards and that kind of thing that you can kind of look at and reference for any of your future video production needs. So that's there on sharelawvideo.org. So,
thanks, Susan.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure.
And Spanish, and if there's time, I'll movie. This is me. There's my email. Email any questions you have after the presentation. Happy to answer any questions about video. So this is a little screenshot of the iMovie interface. I'm going to go pretty quickly through this. But starting a new project, you can see that it's similar to what Susan was showing you in Final Cut. And I'll show the different areas of the screen, but, you know, obviously new project, Control-N, or, and you can see that this is going to also be an important thing to do. Importing. Susan went through the number of ways to bring in new footage, and everything's a little simpler in iMovie. Importing from camera or importing from your computer. And stop me if I use any sort of like video terms of art, because it's kind of like the law. There's like this whole other video lingo. And in iMovie, it's importing. So that's what we do a lot of. The next step, it asks you to name it, of course. We're making one about the rights and responsibilities of landlords and tenants, so that's why I got this RRLLTT. It asks you, it only gives you two options on the aspect ratio. You can change it later, but there's just a standard, and then sort of a widescreen, and then the frame rate. And then you know, iMovie has all these sort of like gimmicky, fun projects in the ready templates, I guess you call them. Like you can make these movie trailers that you just put in your footage and it adds the music and the sound effects and everything. They're kind of fun, but we don't use them for our educational videos. But you know, there's no reason why you couldn't. And then there's the next step. You again, like some default things when you're just starting your project. This I learned the hard way, so I'll try to point out things like that. You know, you're going to bring in still photos. I do a lot of like doing a PowerPoint, bringing it in, making a video out of it, and using a still photo, you bring it in. For some reason, iMovie defaults, like the default setting is this Ken Burns effect, which you probably know Ken Burns, the famous documentary maker, you know, the documentaries on Civil War and baseball and everything, and you know how he always has photos that he's like sort of floating over. You know, you can use it. It looks kind of cool. I don't really like it, so I always have to change this to fit in frame. Make sure I do that, otherwise I get frustrated later. You can change it later, but just so you know, that's how it defaults. And kind of like in all editing programs, like what Susan showed you, and in Camtasia, I'll show you this is similar. There's kind of three areas. iMovie has just one viewer screen that you're going to be looking at what you're making, this green area. And then there's the area where you're sort of raw ingredients, as I call it, your raw footage, your stills, your music, your transitions, what you're looking at down here, and then you kind of bring them up here, basically drag and drop like what Susan showed into the mixing bowl or chopping board. I just came up with this funny cooking analogy the other day. So this is where your project is being edited, and if you're up here like messing around, that's what you'll see in the view screen in iMovie. Whereas if you're down here, like kind of scrolling through the video here, it'll show that. So this is sort of the multi-purpose view screen in iMovie. This is a Camtasia screenshot, and you can see it's similar. There's a view screen, and you know, you can actually change these around depending on what you want. You know, alternate where they stand. But again, like here's the ingredients. So like I've got a still footage, or still shot, and some like video up here. And here's sort of like you saw in Final Cut, audio, video, but it's a more simplified feel, as you can see, in Camtasia and iMovie.
Just
yep.
for the Camtasia for a second, for people who don't know, Camtasia is cross-platform, so it runs on PC and on Mac. It runs about $250 with the educational discount, and it's really customized for doing screen captures, and it has some very simple editing functions in it. Compared to Final Cut, I would say that the learning curve on this is much lower. It's much easier, but it's also a lot less powerful, even though it's about the same price. Camtasia, I would say, is the premier screencast software, at least for PC users at this point.
Yeah, and you know, we got Camtasia because we were doing videos that were video screen grabs of an online process. And if you have a choice between buying that, if you only have PCs, and buying a Mac to get iMovie, I'd almost say, and you just want to make a few videos, maybe Camtasia is the way to go because it's only $300. And it does a lot of these things that I'm going to show you in iMovie. So again, the importing process is like what Susan showed. These in iMovie, they call them events. I've got photos here. I've got different videos that I've imported from my camera or my computer. And then you can see down here the track, the audio. Now, I do a lot of recording voiceover with the lens cap on the camera. So it's just, there's no video, but basically this is just the audio track that I can put up here later. This thing adjusts the size or the scale of the video track that you're looking at, so you can look at the entire 10 minutes or just a little bit of it. And then also you can see over here music, photos, titles, transitions. And now I'm accessing the photos within my computer. And you can see I can bring these up into my so you can see these are all albums I have in my iPhoto. So I guess I'm getting a lot of static in the mic. I think my headset is kind of outdated, so I'm going to try to hold it a little further away from my mouth, and hopefully that helps. Sorry about that. So anyways, here's the photos that I want to bring into my video project, landlord-tenant videos that I've created. And you can see I've selected the album. I'm just dragging and dropping them over here. This little green bar says that's where they're going to go. Takes a little bit of a time adding the stills to the project. That's the rendering process in iMovie. And you can see now that my video is now 1 minute and 20 seconds long. So it just added all the stills in at once. They're each 4 seconds. At this point, I could call it a video. I could export it, and we could put it on YouTube. Now's the point where you edit, you focus in, and decide what you want to do. This is one of our videos we're doing that uses the YouTube annotation feature. So each one of these are buttons that you can choose within the actual screen and go to another video depending on your legal issue. So just to show you, now I'm going to grab some audio and put it up here. So we're down here in our little raw footage area, and just another kind of learn the hard way sort of thing. Maybe you might not know unless you have experience with the video. You can see this is the time that the video was imported, and you can see it goes down to the seconds. So that's the sort of standard we all know, oh, 3 o'clock, 8 minutes, 15 seconds. The video time code is just a little different. So you might look at it and say oh, there must be 34 hours of footage in here, but actually that's 34 minutes, 11 seconds, and then about a half a second. So you can see half a second. It splits the second only into 30 parts, unlike 60. Does that make sense? If not, please message me and I will try to explain it more clearly. So now I'm just doing the same thing, dragging and dropping audio up here. You're going to see, there it is. Now it's another track. You can also see the more simplified interface on iMovie. You just got your audio track, your videos. Now I've selected music over here, and there's already a bunch of fair use jingles, they call them, that you can use any of this music. Apple license anybody to use them, and if I hear it all over the place now on YouTube, because a lot of people use it because it's free. But they have dramatic and hip hop and Green Day knockoffs and everything. So I brought the music in here. I've lowered the volume, and you can see there's 2 tracks. Now I'm ready to export it, and we're going to just make our video to put on YouTube. So you can see in iMovie they call it sharing, because of course they kind of want to encourage you to like social media it and put it on Facebook and Vimeo or whatever. But export movie, and you can do it in QuickTime. And here's where you kind of change the settings, and you can get really involved with this, or you can just go with what the default is, and that can even work if you're okay with that. This is the YouTube uploading screen. So I'm just uploading the video. It takes a couple minutes because this thing is only a couple minutes long. Change the title, the description that will appear on YouTube itself, and then tag it, landlord, tenant, eviction. That's the sort of search engine optimization thing that maybe we should do a whole nother webinar about. And then these are the privacy settings, which YouTube obviously offers a public setting, and then unlisted and private. And so I can change this to unlisted, and then it can't be found in search results, and I can send the link to people I'm working with, and they can just see a draft that isn't publicly available. So now I'm just going to talk briefly about a couple of the issues we ran into because we have to make the English and Spanish videos. These are screenshots of some videos we've made, and basically the main thing you got to do that we found is take only one round of video, and that'll save you time and money. So this is our sort of setup, our equipment setup. This is the camera I use, but you can use a much less expensive one. This one's it uses mini DV, which if anyone knows what that is, but it's almost a little outdated at this point. I sometimes use my phone, and I use my computer, like I said, the external hard drive, and then this sort of studio setup, which is just IKEA lamps and a green sheet that we bought. I'll explain more later. And here it is in table form. If you get the slides after the presentation, you want to write this stuff down. But again, it's just basically iMovie, Camtasia. I make a lot of PowerPoints, and then some animation using paper and pens. We do use the YouTube button feature that I was explaining before, where you can choose to see another YouTube video, and that lets users select the Spanish or English language and they can flip over to it in the first 15 seconds of any of our videos. And we talked to a couple people, a couple organizations in Canada actually, who were doing bilingual videos about why they chose how they did what they did. And the People's Law School in BC, they did some animations that are pretty interesting because they had to do multiple languages, Punjabi, Spanish, and a couple other languages, and they just used the same animation, obviously, and then when they did another language, they captioned it in English and then just dubbed it over. And so we thought that was a good idea because then we didn't have to recreate the visuals each time, although I did kind of recreate some of the text here. This is basically created in PowerPoint. It's construction paper, and these little arrows, you can make little arrows in PowerPoint. Just brought them in, changed the text for the Spanish one. Similar to this. This is really simple. We made a video very quickly based on one of our existing publications, and again, just translated the text, changed it, and brought it into iMovie. Educalois is an organization that does legal educational videos in Quebec, so they do everything in French and English. And you can see they kind of use the more talking head, traditional video live action. And but you can also see you have to find 2 people or 1 person who's bilingual. Like Yesenia is a paralegal at our organization who does some of our voiceover. But it's a little more time intensive, so that's why we like to go with the PowerPoint / an animation style. But you can also see this was shot in front of this green sheet, green screen, and using iMovie, it's really easy to just take that video footage, drag and drop it in front of other footage that I made in PowerPoint, and it's just the green is taken out, and she's projected in front of that other title, because this is what this organization wanted. I mean, we could put the Taj Mahal or whatever you want back there, because it's just like how they do the weather. You probably have heard of green screen technology. And then we developed this sort of hybrid, which was just a series of still photos, again a PowerPoint, but we took live photos, and then I just added some speech balloons, but you can see the Spanish and English. But these are also volunteer attorneys and paralegals. But in this way, they didn't have to memorize the lines or be bilingual. We could just record the voiceover later and then have this sort of kind of interesting comic book style visuals. And so that's it. In the coming year, we have a grant to do a sort of, to add an ASL interpreter, picture-in-picture feature in most of our videos. And again, it'll be like the Spanish button. There'll be another one at the beginning of all of our videos, so you can select ASL and then watch the video with the picture-in-picture interpreter in the corner. And
So
that's about it.
There's a quick question here. Where did you get the green screen?
You can order that online. Honestly, just Google green screen to buy. It was about 1995 kind of thing. I mean, there are film and video supply stores in any major city, but we just ordered ours, I think. I don't even know if we used Amazon. I think we just ordered it. There's a bunch of companies that sell them. It's basically a canvas piece of fabric that's that specific color green.
You had several options there that were on the less expensive side. For a Mac and kind of a middle-of-the-road camera, what is the cost of those two? If a program's considering that.
For a Mac, well, I think an Apple runs. I don't know what their cheapest one is nowadays. Is it 1,200?
Yeah,
and then
Something like
you're
that,
talking
yeah.
at least that, maybe a bit more.
okay, yeah,
With
and
Mhm.
and the camera. I mean, honestly, the cameras are becoming a lot cheaper. I mean, depending on what you want to use, I mean, you could spend a couple $100. Like I said, if you get Camtasia and just decide to stick to only the PowerPoint thing, you might be able to use a really cheap camera to capture the audio. Now, like, there's kind of two schools of thought maybe about audio, whether it's like it really needs to be professional sounding audio or people are going to dismiss the video, or whether pretty good audio is good enough for a video that's a legal educational video that may be up for only a year or so. I don't know. I mean, so there's sort of a range. I kind of fall on the side of you can go with a less expensive camera and microphone and still make videos that will be useful, and think of them more as they should be updated more frequently than trying to do a professional grade video on such a low budget. I don't know, maybe other people have
Right, and one of the important things to think about is how difficult or easy it will be to update these over time, as we've definitely found out here at NJP with regards to document assembly. The law can change, and if you have a simple way to go in and just cut out small pieces and make those edits, it can make that updating process much easier. There was another question here over your drawings, Daniel. Are those available for people to use? That type of stuff.
I've uploaded a lot of the still photos like in a PowerPoint form with a lot of like the ones that we reused, like that construction paper thing without the text, on ShareLaw video. So, and a lot of our videos as well, which, yes, you can take the footage, and if you're able to extract it and edit it in a way that you can use for legal educational videos, that's great. Also, email me if you know something in particular and want, like, oh, I would love that image. I might be able to give it to you, or just email it to you if it's not on ShareLaw video. I think we're almost out of time, but it's up to y'all. I mean, I'm now showing you Camtasia interface, but you can see it's basically the same as iMovie. What do you think, Brian?
I'm going to interrupt you real quick, okay? I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's
I
okay.
have to actually race to a doctor's appointment, so I'm sorry I have to leave, but I will make sure that my email address is also posted somewhere where it's available so anybody can contact me with any questions they might have, okay?
Definitely.
So,
Okay.
We
I
will
forgot
add
to let you know.
those
I'm sorry I
to
have
the
to leave, but sure.
post, and thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming, Susan.
Sure. Thank you all. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
There's another question here. Have you tried any free web-based editing, or have any recommendations for really low budget?
Free web-based editing. Do you mean like the sort of extra normal animation software or anything like that? Or I guess I haven't used any of the free web-based editing.
Yeah, he's asking here specifically like Google Drive apps, those type of things.
Oh, okay.
I've played with a few of them about 2 years ago, but I have not tried them recently. I'm definitely willing to spend a little bit of time and play with some of them and see what else is out there. Your connection to the internet definitely matters a lot when using one of those.
Yeah, and I've used, I mean, there are apps, if you're talking about that, like on my iPhone, like animation apps, and I mean, now with like Vine and Cinemagram, these sort of like video social media things, if you're familiar with that, it's sort of like a really quick video maker. I've played around with it, but it just hasn't been something that we've used in the organization. But I'm always kind of like looking for stuff like that to incorporate
YouTube
in.
has also slowly been integrating a video editing suite into YouTube directly. There are now functions to clip the beginning, the end, to do some color correction, to add subtitles, and that's a progressive project that YouTube is working on. And the functions that I've used for YouTube, although extremely basic, are extremely easy and work really well.
Yeah, so I don't know. I can show you a few things in Camtasia, or were we only going to 11 or?
Yeah, we've got it down till 11, but I definitely want to thank people. Let everybody know that this video will be up on our YouTube channel, and that we will do a blog post summarizing this stuff. If people are interested in sticking around and you want to talk about Camtasia for another 5 or 10 minutes and answer 1 or 2 more questions, that would be great also. But I wanted to also thank Kristen so much for organizing and point out ShareLaw Video again as a resource for a lot of the stuff from this. So questions that we've got here still pending is there was a comment on Jing being a fast, easy way to make videos. It's extremely inexpensive. I believe it's $15 a year. There's a little bit of an issue in that Jing, which is Jing, is owned by TechSmith, who owns Snagit and Camtasia, and I believe they'll be discontinuing that particular product in the next year. I have used it in the past. It's very good, and it's very inexpensive. Oh, there was another interesting one here. Are you aware of any pro bono translation services or volunteer communities to create bilingual video resources? And I'll let Daniel answer that first, but I do know one. I just have to do a little bit of work here on Google and see if I can find it.
Okay, so I actually don't know about the pro bono translation. We use a translator that we work with for all of our print publications and also our video scripts. And we had money in our grant to translate our videos into Spanish. So while he's researching that, I was just, if you're still looking at the screen and are curious about Camtasia and have never seen it, I guess 2 of the coolest things about it as a video editing thing is kind of like what Susan was doing with adding text and little graphics to the screen. You can do it, you can play around with it right there. So like, for example, like we made this video that shows this interpreter directory online. So we want to show people how to use a website, a directory that's online. So we got a screen grab that Camtasia let us just record moving around, and then we can add in arrows, for example, like here's where you want to go, people, and then they have like a bunch of other ones. For example, this thing that will like draw on the screen to highlight a particular part. You can also like black out areas if you need to redact an area of a screen, for example. And then the other cool thing about it is the zoom and pan. So you again can like show up here is where the mailing list is, and you can it will actually make that as a sort of animation. So if you have any questions about Camtasia, I can answer those too.
I'm going to have to do a little bit more research. I'm not seeing it right off. I know that... here it is. Amara is the service. It is created by the same people who do the Miro video player, and it is an easy way to allow other to kind of crowdsource translations, add subtitles to it. It's a free tool that's out there. I will do a very short blog post in the future about it. So it is a very low-cost option that's out there that I know that some of the low-budget arts community has been using it to translate videos into different languages. I know there's been some opposition in the legal aid area to use anything less than official translations, but the cost can be very prohibitive. So I think this is a good alternative. There's another question here. What are you thinking on videos versus Prezi or Articulate? Are videos passive, and where the others are more interactive?
I haven't used Prezi and Articulate very much. The presentation software that kind of like swoops around, and you can. As far as videos being passive, yeah, I mean, it's true. You're just kind of sit and watch them. I mean, we are working a little bit in like making the choose your own adventure buttons to let people select which issue. And I think it's just a matter of like going to where people are actually trying to get information, which is YouTube. So, I mean, I suppose we could make a video of a Prezi.
Yes.
But
I've definitely seen videos of Prezi's presentations that look really good. It is a nice way to do something that has some more animation flow feel to it. Articulate I have also played with some. It is on the very expensive side for people who aren't familiar with it. It basically is a plugin to PowerPoint that allows you to create some interactive content. You can put like quizzes in there or other interactive pieces to the video. I think that is definitely the direction that resources are going to go in the future, and I think Daniel's point is extremely relevant, that you need to take resources to people. With LSNTAP, we've noticed that we get about 10 times as many views on our videos just by posting them on YouTube than we did posting them on our rather well-trafficked website ourselves. So I think there needs to be a push on the video sites like YouTube to integrate some of those more interactive features that Articulate has there. And I think the Choose Your Own Adventure is the very beginning of that, but I'm sure that we'll be moving in that direction in the future, especially if it allows people to customize the content that they're viewing so they don't have to wade through a bunch of irrelevant things just to get to the main points that they want.
Yeah, and I think I actually was playing around with Prezi and was looking at it because I think I was trying to do a PowerPoint that looked better than just a static PowerPoint, and I think that it was just more expensive than we wanted to pay. I mean, you can get a trial version or something, or the basic version, but it adds like a watermark, and there's these restrictions on what you can do with it, I think. Do you know anything about that, Brian?
No, I haven't played with the demo on it.
Okay.
There was a question here over iMovie: are there blackout and zoom pane features in iMovie also?
There is not the zoom, unless I don't know about it, but it's not like Camtasia where you can zoom in, which is kind of why we use both. And like, especially showing in an online process, we really want to show as zooming in to a certain corner of the screen, and you can't do that in iMovie that I know of. I've tried to like game it or like do a sort of trick version of it using PowerPoint and bringing in slides, and so I do it outside of iMovie and bring it in, and it sort of has the same visual effect, but it's not as flowing or quick as Camtasia.
Yeah,
and same with the
Camtasia's
blackout
zoom in, zoom
redaction
out
thing.
is super easy, very nice feature.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
any other?
you can see like, oh, sorry.
Oh, go for it.
I mean, this is the sort of the zoom thing that you can change here. You can move this box to wherever you want. I mean, you can also do sort of like panning features. And I'm going to push play here, and you can see it'll just sort of like... Actually, it's kind of like that, and you can move around the screen. You can't do that in iMovie that I know of. But just adding it in as a feature.
Any other questions that individuals have? Well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Greatly appreciate it, and we will have the video and other resources up here in the coming days. Thank you for presenting, Daniel, and for helping make this happen, Kristen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.